it's Mxiety. I am on tonight with the awesome, the incredible, the psych show, Dr. Ali Mattu. Hi, Dr. Ali. Thank you so much for being
Hi,
here.
Em. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
I am so excited to have you. Like, been sweating all day a little bit too much, kind of excited to have you. So this is gonna be great. I have like way too many questions and then also don't know where to start. But
Cool.
don't forget, fam, the best questions come from you. So I have opened the question queue, exclamation, the letter Q, followed by your question. And that will put your question into a queue that we can, try to orderly answer with Dr. Ali here. Any questions specifically pertaining to suicide prevention or suicide awareness are probably your best bet. But if you've watched the psych show and you're interested in other stuff pertaining to that, all questions. Dr. Ali literally told me is like, I'm going to be answering questions and talking to chat. So make the chat talkable, fam. I believe in you. I believe in you. Hi. Oh, excellent. Excellent. I see you in chat. Okay, great stuff. We did have a question come in, and you know what? We are going to start with it. Bliff, thank you so much for that one.
Awesome.
What did you learn this week? Any category?
Me?
Yeah, you.
What did I learn?
Yeah.
Oh man, what did I learn? I learned. I know I've learned stuff. Okay. I've got a mental health one, and I've got a not so mental health one, but like a personal passion of mine.
Okay.
So, I let's start with the personal passion one of mine. I just started watching the Space Shuttle Challenger documentary on Netflix. I think it just
Ooh.
came out.
Okay.
I'm a big space nerd. I love space, and
Okay.
I've always talked about the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster as an example when I teach social psychology. It's an example of something called groupthink, when everyone rallies around a leader and you don't really feel like you have the option to dissent or to say something that might conflict with what the group is feeling and supporting. And so I'm learning a lot about this. Okay, can I nerd out, for a second?
Yo, I want you to nerd so hard. All the
Okay.
nerding.
All right. So I've learned about like O-rings on the space shuttle and what those are and how that contributed to the space shuttle disaster. There were these like layers of insulation on the rocket, and if those wore out, then rocket fuel could like spill out of the booster and it could explode, which is what contributed to the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. I've
Whoa.
always known that these things were a problem, but I never knew what they actually were. So I learned that this week. Um, in terms of like mental health, what I learned about myself is so I'm in Northern California. I grew up in Northern California, and then I was on the East Coast for a long time, and now I'm back. And what I've learned is I'm like deeply grieving the climate in California, and I am like really grieving what has happened to this climate and how it's changed. And I'm like, I never really realized that until like a few days ago. That like, I'm very aware of how different this California is from the one I grew up with, and it's making me
Oh,
sad and
yeah.
angry and frustrated and overwhelmed. And yeah, so there's a lot of grieving that I'm doing.
Hmm. Hmm. It's been, I have, a few friends on the West Coast, and I haven't known how to approach the conversation with them other than saying, that sucks and just validating a little
Yeah.
bit, but then also saying, I'm sorry we did this to the climate. Like that feels like the only thing that you could say to someone who's on the West Coast and being like, I can't breathe. And
Yeah.
you want to somehow empathize, and like the only thing that comes into my mind literally is like, I'm sorry we messed up the planet. I I don't know. It sucks. It just sucks.
It's hard, and like these a lot of the big things that we're dealing with this year are big problems that don't have any easy answers. And
Right.
like you can point to people or organizations that have maybe made it worse, but there isn't like one person or thing that you can get
Mm-hmm.
mad at.
Right.
Like climate change is something like all of humanity has contributed for like
Yep. Yeah.
decades and decades. So it's it's a hard time to be a human. Maybe that's what I've learned. But that's
I
a
like
great
that.
question. Um,
I
yeah.
like that. Who knew that the first questions would be the hardest? So now we're gonna rewind that. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Rewind. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I should introduce myself. So,
Yeah.
hello everyone. My name is Ali Mattu. I am a clinical psychologist. I love psychology. I love mental health, and I hate how hard it is to access those things. I hate how hard it is to access good quality psychological science. I hate how hard it is to access good quality mental health support and information, and how hard it is to navigate those worlds. So, a while back, I started a YouTube channel called The Psych Show where I try to make psychology fun and easy to understand. And I make videos over there, and I've spent most of my career treating anxiety and anxiety related issues. So, always happy to talk about all of that sort of stuff. This stuff is personal to me. I grew up with social anxiety, experienced depression as a result of it as well. I've lost a loved one to suicide. It's impacted my family. I live this stuff. I breathe this stuff. It's my passion. And when Em reached out to me a while back, and then I super crashed one of your streams, I was like, let me see if she's online right now. And I'm like, hey, I just read your email. Totally happy to be on your show. And you're like, wait, what's happening?
And I was like, I thought it was a prank. There was definitely a part of my mind that was like, this is a joke. I just went, so I will, I have everything. I'm a project manager by trade, editorial project manager. So everything's very regimented and scheduled. And so I will go through and I'll send out a bunch of invitations to people that I admire at once. And then my brain goes, okay, now let's forget it in case you get rejection later. You get to be like,
Right.
oh, I don't even remember that I did that. So my brain was like, this is a joke. I was like, this isn't how this works out. What are you talking? So it was really, really cool to have you on. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for agreeing to be on. That was really cool.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I just kind of wanted to see your stream and to see what you're about, and you
Right.
just happened to be live
That
at
worked
the time
out.
that I read your email, and I'm like, do I have a Twitch account? And apparently, like, I did. And I'm like, okay, hi.
Well, it's a past
yeah.
past Dr. Ali was a little smart and thought ahead and made you a Twitch account so you can follow me now. It's all great. It all worked out.
Yeah, well, and with that, I'm super excited to be here. I've done YouTube for a long time, but I've never, ever really done Twitch. So this is super exciting to me. I'm super excited to chat with everyone here. And yeah, thanks for having me. I think mental health is something that is so complicated, and there's so many challenges, and we need so many people doing lots of different things to like tackle this problem from many different angles. So when you reached out, I was like, well, yeah, no, totally, I'm gonna make this happen because I want to support the awesome work you're doing, and I want to support
Thank
this
you.
community
Yes.
in showing up, having these hard conversations, supporting each other. This is what it's all about. This is why we're here.
This is exactly why we're here. This is, I guess this is a good time for me to introduce myself in case I don't know, because I didn't really tell you my whole story, but yeah, it was actually 3 year World Mental Health Day. October 10th will mark 3 years since I started. And it was a last ditch attempt at living. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm really not feeling this. I don't feel like I can keep doing this. But if I can make something better for somebody, maybe I can keep going. And it was one of those, like, I was absolutely at rock bottom emotionally. And at that point, the cool thing that happened at that point was that my brain went, well, you got nothing to lose. If you're going to, you got nothing to lose. And here we are 3 years later, and it's absolutely the most incredible thing that I've ever gotten to do in my life. And I'm so, so grateful for all these beans who are in chat. Oh my gosh. Hey, Dr. K is here, who is better known as Kelly Dunlap. She's the one who sent me to you. She's the one who sent me over.
Hey, Kelly, good to see you.
Yay! Welcome back to Twitch, Dr. Mattu. All right, let's see. I feel like in regards to the situation West Coast is that improper forest land management, also large Part of the problems, well, it's happening as well as climate change. Obviously, I'm East Coast, so I don't have the on-the-ground experience about with it. But there are several studies that suggest that the forests are too densely packed and could be better managed to spread out the fuel, meaning trees, as well as any dropped branches, debris on the forest floor.
It's a complicated
It's
problem.
complicated, yeah.
Yeah, it's so there's a climate change angle, there's a management angle, there's a huge economic angle to it as well. We have a huge housing crisis in California. It's where the jobs are does not really equal where the homes are, or at least
Yep.
affordable homes.
Yeah.
So that's a problem in Northern California and Southern California. So people have had to move farther and farther away to be able to afford housing. And where a lot of people have been moving to are areas that have now become fire dangers. So what the wildfire crisis is really showing us is all the big failures we have in California. And I think it's a similar crisis we're seeing with the coronavirus. It's showing all the different fragile parts of our society that have probably been neglected and
Yep.
we now need to take care of. Otherwise, we're in for a lot of problems. One thing I just want to say, Em, before we move forward,
Yep.
thanks for sharing your story.
I really condensed it and probably made it a little more blasé than I would if we had more time.
Well, we don't because we got to get into the chat.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to say is something that's been really powerful to me is knowing that when we go through some of these big, difficult crises in our lives, we might struggle with it, and sometimes at the exact same time, we might also be growing from it.
Yeah.
Our values might change.
Yeah.
We might learn new things or learn that, you know what, this isn't important to me anymore, but this is. And it sounds like that's been part of your journey is really a growth and discovering something new. And obviously, you've really touched a lot of lives here and forming this community. So I think that's awesome.
I hope so. Thank you. I'm fine. Let's go. I'm gonna go to the first question, and if we have time in between questions, I'll kind of poke mine through. But I want to get everybody else's questions in because we only have an hour with you, which seems like a lot of time, but it's not. But
it's gonna fly by.
Exactly. So Mappadale asks, I was diagnosed with. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder at the age of 14, as I was on the spectrum for many conditions, and it stuck right up until 2019 when we made the decision and took an autism test, and it actually transpired that my BPD is actually autism. Is it common for either to be confused with the other, and so a wrong diagnosis happens?
That is such a good question. Thank you for that question. Okay. So a few different things. One is borderline personality disorder has these a few different problem areas. One is you have a really hard time understanding your identity, really intense emotions. Sometimes it's hard to deal with those emotions, and then you might act very quickly, and you might experience consequences that have really negative impact on yourself and your relationships, and also on your family. So a lot of other things can cause those problems too, whether it might be ADHD, being on the spectrum, bipolar depression, bipolar disorder. It's hard when you're a teenager and you still have so much massive development happening in your brain. Most clinicians are very hesitant to make any of those diagnoses. Of those things I've identified, the autism spectrum is where we have one of the best standardized tools to try to make that diagnosis. Usually with something like borderline personality disorder, we don't make that diagnosis until someone's an adult. So that diagnosis probably should have been made when you were so young. It could have been something that people were considering, but they probably shouldn't have made that diagnosis because when you're a teenager, these things can all look very alike. All of that stuff being said, I am so glad you found the diagnosis that seems to fit, and I hope what's related to that is you've also found not only a better understanding of yourself, but also gotten support that better fits. If anyone is thinking that they might have borderline personality disorder, one of the best treatments out there is something called dialectical behavior therapy.
We're huge proponents here.
DBT
Yes.
all the way. I'm a huge fan.
Yes.
DBT. And I think someone in the chat was saying that one of my videos about DBT stuff kind of helped. Missing it now, but Marsha Linehan is a person who developed DBT, and she's amazing because she struggled with borderline personality disorder herself and got a lot of really bad treatment for it. There's a great article in the New York Times, an interview with her from many years ago, and she just came out with a memoir. I haven't read it yet. I got it downloaded as an audiobook because that's the only way I get any reading done nowadays. But she struggled with really bad treatment and was like, you know what? Maybe I can like make something better. And she did, and she's awesome. So yeah, that was a very long answer. I hope that answered the question.
No, that's the answers I want you to have. That's great. We had Dr. Ursula Whiteside, who studied very closely under Marsha Linehan. So we're huge proponents of DBT here, and we throw it around as a solution for a lot of stuff. Okay.
You know, I kind of wish that a lot of DBT skills were just taught in school.
Because they're very just life skill. I mean, I feel like a lot of therapy is that way, right? Like, honestly. Yeah. This sucks, even I can do better is how a lot of things change in the world. Yeah.
It's kind of how why I started my YouTube channel too. Because I was really frustrated that there weren't a lot of good videos I could share with my patients. A lot of my colleagues at the time made videos that were really just recordings of like hour-long lectures.
Right.
And I'm like, no one I work with is going to watch any of these. Like, I can barely watch any of these. So that's kind of like why I started making my channel too. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, the opposite side was me, where I watched a lot of those 1-hour lectures, and then I heard a lot of oh my God, I heard a lot of other advocates, and they were sharing their personal journey, and I was like, these are both really important. Why aren't these people talking to each other?
Yeah,
so that was what I set out to do.
One of my favorite spaces in mental health some of my favorite spaces are those where people whose lives have been impacted with mental health and people who've dedicated their lives to working on mental health are in the same room.
Yes.
There's a few organizations like that. The BFRB Association, Body Focused Repetitive Behavior organization. They started off working with hair pulling disorder, which is trichotillomania, skin picking, and all of that. Their meeting every year is like that, where it's clinicians and researchers and people who have this and their loved ones, and we're all kind of in these rooms together, and the conversations that come out of them are so different if it's just like, you know, any one group. Like, unfortunately, it's very hard and rare for people on all of these different sides to be in the same room together. So I'm with you, Em. I 100% agree.
Yeah. Well, that's why we come on. It's a very welcome environment. Come on in here. We'll put a fire under your butt and grill you with questions. It's a great time. Everybody join us. Everybody join. Okay, next question. Oh, I thought we'd be a little slow tonight, but here we are. Okay, Kid Carbon. They're coming. Kid Carbon asks, how has COVID impacted what you observe in patients? As we were discussing earlier, if people with mental health challenges are better equipped to cope with a pandemic.
That's a really good question, and it's hard to answer it because there's a lot of diversity and experience here. So for some people, COVID-19 and all the challenges as a result of it, for some people they've experienced relief because let's say they struggle with something like generalized anxiety disorder, where you experience a lot of worries. It's hard for you to stop your worries. You feel a lot of tension in your body. Maybe you're doing a lot of reassurance seeking, looking up information online or checking in with people. Hey, I did this thing. Do you think that's okay? Or I texted this person this thing. I haven't heard back. What do you think's going on? Um, it's like too much focus inside and too much focus on your thoughts. And for some people who experience that, having this external crisis actually helps you to focus outside. I kind of think of it as like, if anyone here is a Lord of the Rings fan, it's like
Oh
the
no, we have
Eye
none
of
of those here.
Sauron.
Yeah, we have
You
none of
got,
those
yeah,
here.
okay.
No, we
Is
have
it, is
none
it
of
you?
those.
Are you the, oh, no.
Yeah. I used to have Lego figures of like every scene from Lord of the Rings. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Those are worth a lot of money.
Wait,
Um,
wait, are you serious? When we moved, we got
yeah.
rid of them. Are you serious?
No! Em, no!
Oh, my husband's watching downstairs and he's going, just,
I didn't know that, but a cousin of mine told me. He said never throw away any Lego set because they retain their value. It's like ridiculous. I used to collect comic books in the 90s. I got them all valued. They're not worth anything.
Right.
I have one comic book that's worth like $150. Everything else is like worth less than what I paid for it.
oh my God. Right.
Legos, they retain their value like incredibly.
Oh my God,
But
I'm
it's okay.
crying
It's okay.
inside.
It's
I mean,
okay.
I'll be better
Did
next
you go
time.
to a good home? Did
No.
someone? No.
No, the
Okay.
only thing I kept was a Shelob, I think. I have to find her.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
You know?
hopefully they're in a better place. I don't
we
know.
learn. We have to learn somehow, and some experiences are more painful than others. We have
That's
a
true.
we have a Rapunzel tangled tower behind us that we built last week, so
Oh,
we
I
will
love
know not
I
to
love
get rid of
Tangled.
that. Oh, that's the mural and every huge Tangled fan here.
Tangled is awesome.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyway.
I am Sauron. That's what I was talking about.
Right. That's where we are.
So imagine this like focus, right? Like all
Right.
your attention, all your resources are focused on one thing. For a lot of people who struggle with anxiety, it's like inside on you, on what you've been doing and all of that.
Right.
And then for some people with COVID-19, the focus has become external to that, and that's provided them with some relief. At the same time, some of those people had that relief. Maybe that's gone now because the situation's become so long term. And then for some people that were working on their mental health, it's very hard to focus on the goals that they had before. So let's take something like agoraphobia, where it's very hard to be in situations where you can't really, where you don't feel like you're in control. So it might be hard to go outside or to drive or go over bridges or be in elevators.
Right.
A lot of people who are struggling with agoraphobia, it's very hard to make progress on that now. It's very hard to be able to do the work that you need to do, and there's like a lot of new stressors associated with it. And I'm just talking about people who were experiencing difficulties with their mental health before. The other problem here now is everyone has a mental health story now. Everyone is struggling in some way. Everyone has had a taste of isolation, of
Right.
hypervigilance, of trauma, of grief. Whether or not you know someone who's been impacted by the coronavirus, all of us have in some way lost a way of life,
Right.
and we're all grieving that. And it's kind of like it's very hard to really grieve this stuff because you might work on it, but then you get pummeled again by something else, and
Right.
something else changes.
Yeah.
And it's not like a normal grieving process where
Right.
there's a beginning, something has happened, and you're able to start to move forward in your life.
Right.
It's very hard to feel like you're making any forward momentum. So to
Right.
answer that question, some people have gotten some relief. Some people, it's very hard for them to move forward on the things that they were working on. And then a lot of people who weren't struggling are struggling now. Like substance use is something that's really climbed.
Yeah.
A lot of people are, alcohol use, marijuana use has really
Yep.
gone up. Everyone is, we're all struggling in different ways. And
Yeah.
those who have less, who are, or who are more vulnerable to COVID-19, or we haven't even talked about the racial unrest in this country and
Right.
all the violence that's
Right.
happening. A lot of people who have had past traumas, just being a minority in this country,
Right.
they're getting pummeled again and again by what's happening. So it's a tough time. It's a tough time. One thing that gives me hope with this is everyone does now have an experience with mental health, and I hope we are able to use this to rebuild a better mental health system and support and communities of caring and compassion and connection.
Yeah, yeah. I was just reading an article, I think it came out today in the Washington Post, about the importance. Was it Washington Post or was it? Okay. But it was about the importance of psychological first aid and how
Yes.
critical it is to have access to that now, and how, the mental health stigma really just doesn't have room. Like everybody needs
No.
help, and everybody needs to be prepared somehow to handle other people's needs. And yeah.
Yeah, I really I love that, this idea. We don't have room for stigma anymore.
They're just sorry, no time to.
Yeah, we're done. But yeah, psychological first aid is, it's another one of those things that should just be taught in school. If someone's in danger, help them to get to safety. Connect them, get them the
Right.
information they need. Connect them with support in their environment.
Right.
Keep checking in. Like one of the most important ideas I learned, in my journey in mental health, both as a provider but also someone who struggled with this stuff myself, is the role of social support.
Yeah.
Getting help from someone else in the way that you want to get help is like the skill across all of mental health, whether you're talking about depression, anxiety, suicide prevention, eating disorders. It is so important for people, and you don't need a ton of it.
No.
You need one person
Right.
in your life who you can share the tough stuff with and get help in the way that you want it, which might sometimes be like, I'm just going to play a video game with you, and it just feels really good just to be with someone else who I trust.
Yeah.
And for other people, it might be like, we're going to get some coffee and sit down, and I just want to talk. Whatever it is, feeling like you have that support and being able to get it in the way that you want it. It's like the thing in mental health.
Yeah.
I wish we did more to like help people learn how to do that.
Yeah.
How to be a good listener and just be there for people.
I think I do. Maybe I'm a little optimistic, but I do believe we're getting there. Mental health first aid is getting more and more accessible, like across the globe. I promote a lot the No Stigmas Ally training, which is a free training that anybody can get, and that gives you, it might not be, as robust as mental health first aid, but it definitely gives you an overview and helps you be a little less, blind to what's going on and how to handle it. And then we have like the games hotline, the games and harassment hotline, who we interviewed last week. Like, there are people who are listening in the right way and offering support how it's needed. And that's awesome that we have that in this time. That's amazing.
I am a big believer that no one person, no one profession owns mental health. It's not. It's not the professionals. It's not, mental health does not belong to the counselors and therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists. It belongs to all of us, and we all have a responsibility to support the people around us, the people in our communities. And when you have that uncomfortable feeling in your stomach, like, I'm really worried about Ali, to know how to reach out and how to support that person that you're worried about. Like, that's, I think, our responsibility to teach people those basic skills, the psychological first aid, so then they can be empowered to have that conversation, to reach out, to support.
I would love to just offline separately continue talking to you about that, because that is
Yeah.
the biggest thing that I am a proponent of right now, and the biggest thing that I'm trying to push, and I'm trying to find the language for it, and you just worded it so well. So I think between like clipping this and rewinding it over and over again, and like maybe actually having a conversation, that'd be great.
Two
That's
quick
an
things
aside.
I can recommend to
Go
that
for it.
related to that
Go
right
for it.
now. I have a video on psychological first aid
Oh
on my
yes,
YouTube channel.
yes.
So
I'm plugging all your
that
stuff. There you go.
yeah, if anyone wants to learn more, I've got that video. People can check that out. The other thing is the JED Foundation is a wonderful organization related to suicide prevention of young people. It's named after the founder's son who passed away, who died by suicide, and they're really dedicated to helping young people get connection, get support. They have a really, really, really good resource. It's an online resource where you can click on, I'm worried about my friend, or I want to get help, or I want to learn how to have this conversation, and you can just kind of click through, and it has like you can try saying this, you can try doing this, and if that doesn't work,
It's
here's
awesome.
something else you can try. It's free. It's awesome.
Oh man,
I love them
I
so
wrote it
much.
down.
So yeah, check it out,
Okay.
folks, if you're interested. The
Okay.
JED Foundation.
Awesome, awesome. Both of those are great resources, and they're going on my website because I collect that.
Let's put it on the website.
All right, so I closed the queue. Nobody freak out, but we have 4 questions in 20 minutes, and we've not been good on time. So I've closed the queue just so we can make sure we get through the questions that we have right now, and I will promise I will reopen it if we have time. Okay. Fellowship of the Tables asks, right? On the topic of suicide prevention, is there anything you'd like to share about how to help encourage someone who sounds like they might be suicidal to get help? It's intentionally a
Yeah.
broad question.
Yeah, so the very first thing I want to say is thank you for being someone who's concerned and is thinking about someone else in their life. The second thing I want to say is I'm sure, and this has come up in a lot of your conversations. Asking about suicide does not make a problem worse. It doesn't put the idea
Right.
in someone's head,
Right.
right? Like this is. I honestly don't know where this came from, but this is one of the biggest barriers I have when I'm talking to people about and this question comes up. They're like, well, I don't want to make things worse by asking them if they're suicidal, if they're having thoughts about death or dying or all of this sort of stuff. I'm like, no, 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 no. Decades of research, this does not happen. Asking someone, expressing your concern to someone, being compassionate does not make the problem worse.
Right.
In fact, a number of mental health advocates who have been suicidal, attempted suicide, they have talked about. The one thing I was looking for was someone to ask me "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
I was looking for a reason for living, and I didn't have it. And so, if you have that feeling, if you have a concern, the number one tip I have is to express that concern that I'm really worried about you. How are you doing today? I always add that qualifier because how are you doing is so complicated for anyone who's struggling with their
Right.
mental health.
Right.
It's like, well, I'm
I'm
depressed.
I'm doing.
Yeah. I'm here.
Right.
But how are you doing today is a little bit better question, especially when we're going through these crises where, Em, if you reached out to me if we were having this 2 weeks ago, I was not in a good place because of the climate here. We had a day where it was just orange outside. You could
Right.
not see the sun.
Terrifying.
It was terrifying. I felt like I was in a dystopian. Felt like I was in Blade Runner, in,
Right.
the worst way possible.
Right. I saw those pictures and I was like, that's not the set. I don't see a Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. Blade Runner without Ryan Gosling, no Harrison Ford.
Yeah, what is this? Rip off.
Did it have any cool tech? No, it was like a horrible sequel. But how are
Sorry.
you doing expressing your concern? How are you doing today? And then asking the person, are you having thoughts about suicide? Are you having thoughts about ending your life? Um, Ask the person if you're afraid of that, and have that conversation. I've got a video called How to Listen Like a Therapist that there's like 4 tips I have for how to just listen in a compassionate way. And the big tips are just to kind of to listen and then reflect back in your own words what you're hearing the person say.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why that's so important is we so often misunderstand what people are saying. And I've been doing this work for many years. I have learned a long time ago that what I'm thinking the person is telling me is so far off from what they're actually explaining. And so I
Hmm.
reflect back many times, and most of the time, and people are like, no, 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 it's not like that. It's actually like this. And then I'll reflect back, and they're like, well, that's closer, Dr. Mattu, but not quite there.
I have literally had this discussion with my therapist where I'm like, no, I'm
Right?
explaining it. Why are you not getting
Right.
it? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're humans, and this, like, our lip muscles,
They
they're
only
not,
do so much. Yeah.
they
It's,
can only do so much, and
yeah.
emotions are complicated.
Yeah.
So, if you're trying to have this conversation and you're worried about saying the wrong thing, don't say stuff. Listen and
Right.
reflect back
Yeah.
until you get to a point where you really understand. And then when you understand, it's just, it's going to feel so compassionate. It's going to, the person will feel more supported, like you're actually listening and understanding. And you're going to get closer to actually helping that person to get help. You don't have to be their therapist. I know I just said, watch my video about how to listen like a therapist.
Listening like a
You're,
therapist and being a therapist are not the same. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm not a therapist. It's not the same thing. It's
exactly.
different. It's
And
different.
it's totally. And your job as a friend is to listen, care, and help the person get help.
Right.
That's your job. And listening to them, helping them get help might mean helping them to share with someone else, or help like a family member, a loved one, or it might mean helping them to share this with the therapist. Sometimes people are in therapy getting treatment, and they're having a hard time telling their therapist
Mm-hmm.
that they might be having suicidal thoughts.
Right.
So it might mean like helping them to share that with their own therapist, or it might mean getting in touch with a crisis text line, with a suicide hotline. It might mean just helping them to make that initial step. But you sharing that you're concerned, you being there, that goes a long way to helping someone else to feel like there might be a reason to continue living.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. The next question, I think, actually is a perfect segue from that, which is Maywin asks, what do you think are the biggest benefits of having a Suicide Awareness Month, and what do you think are the biggest drawbacks?
Um, Biggest benefits are that we're having conversations like this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit more spotlight, and there's coordinated campaigns. Like I think that there's actually. Have you guys ever talked about parasocial relationships?
We had I'm very excitable. We had a specialist come on recently and specifically talk about that. And his name is escaping me, and he's a friend, so this is terrible.
It's gonna come back.
It'll come back, and I'll just like, bah! But yeah. So he like has dedicated his, his time and life studying this specifically. And yeah, it was a fantastic conversation. And then I was recently on a PAX Online panel where we continued that discussion and where the line is with advocate and talking about mental health. Because there is a thing on Twitch where, hey, I'm anonymous. This person is talking at me. They're having conversations with me. Mm-hmm. I really feel like I'm connecting with them, and now I can tell them my mental health story. And there's advocates like me, and then there is 99% of the rest of Twitch who's like, I just want to play some games and make people laugh. I have no idea what to do now.
Right.
Yeah, and so this is a big one. But long answer,
Yeah.
short question. Go ahead. Yes,
That's what we do. That's what
Emory
we're
Daniel.
doing today.
Emory Daniel.
This,
Yes, Dr. Daniel. That's who it was.
there we
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Well, yes, and we have the relationships we have with people that we interact with online or celebrities and people that we watch. Those are real relationships, and we feel real emotions related to those people. So when we talk about having Suicide Awareness Month, and if we get people involved that we have these parasocial relationships with, these parapsychological relationships that are real relationships with people we might not have ever met before, um, it's a, it's a big deal when people are talking about their own struggles, when people are talking about things that have gone on in their family. When Anna Akana talks about her own struggles or her own the loss she's experienced in her family related to suicide, that's a big deal because a lot of people have a relationship with her, and it makes it easier for us to have these conversations in our own communities and with the people that we love, or it might just make us feel less alone. So one of the biggest advantages of a suicide prevention month is sparking these conversations. One of the big disadvantages is always the message of like, well, it's really just this month. Like we're
Yeah.
not going to have these conversations outside, or we need to save. Sometimes in the media world, people will be like, well, we need to save all of that for September because that's when we're putting out that content.
Especially
We're
like
not going to be.
marketing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Smart
Yep. Yep.
marketing.
So
Yeah.
it's both of those two sides. I will say one of the most amazing surprises I've had in my life and my career is how much people people who are teenagers and in their 20s, I think have really like fueled this, have opened up conversations around mental health in a way that like was never possible before. It was not that long ago that I was in grad school. I would have never have imagined I'd be able to talk about my own struggles and
Right.
still have my job. And that was like in the 2000s. That was not
Not
long
that
ago.
long ago.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, the things have shifted, and I think it's largely because uh, people have changed that conversation. So I'm very thankful to everyone who has pushed things forward and made it okay for people like me who are in the mental health field and used to be terrified, like what would happen if people found out I too struggled with anxiety. That's not an issue anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've heard or read it. Lori Gottlieb's book, maybe you should talk to someone. So
Yes.
good. So good. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's great as somebody who's been to a therapist to see that side. And it also opened my eyes because like I always had the kind of therapist that would not talk to me about their problems, but would be like, "Hey, I can relate to this because I struggle with this thing too." And
Yeah.
I always thought like, "Hey, that's normal because that makes me see them as a person and that they're not just like studying me, you know?"
Right.
And she
Right.
talked a lot in that book about like how there are people who like don't see their patients again after the patient finds out that the therapist sees a therapist or something like that. It's wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of diversity out there for the type of therapists you might work with. And
Right.
some people don't want that. Some people
Right.
never want to hear about their therapist's own lives at all. And some people want more of that. They want more of a genuine connection where they feel like they know that person in more detail. So what I always tell people is, the mental health world is hard to navigate. At the same time, there are like infinite number of therapists out there. The question is always about like finding the right match.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I want to share about that, M, is I think COVID-19 and telehealth and everyone doing therapy like this
Mm-hmm.
has changed the game.
Mm-hmm.
People are much more exposed, and have to be a bit more authentic. So the whole field has been nudged in that direction.
Yes, and it's
Of
been
having
behind.
to share more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Oh my
definitely behind.
gosh.
Yeah.
It's like the Stone Ages. Are you kidding me? Like one of my greatest frustrations is, um, I struggle deeply with privacy and mental health
Mm-hmm.
because we have to have massive amounts of privacy and confidentiality to protect
Right.
patients and clients. Absolutely, that's needed. One of the consequences is no one really knows what's happening behind closed doors. So it's very hard to know if you're getting good, effective treatment because no one really
Hmm.
knows, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So it's different than like surgeries where there's a
Right.
whole team of people.
Right.
It's so I struggle with that, and when I've been involved in training new therapists, my role as a supervisor, my number one ethical responsibility is to protect the public, to make sure people aren't getting bad therapy. But
Right.
once someone becomes independently licensed, they're on their own.
Right.
It's very hard to know, like, are they doing the thing that they should be? And especially if you're struggling with anxiety, depression, all of these things, like it's not on you to like fact
Right.
check your therapist to make sure they're
Right.
doing the right thing. You should never have to do
Yeah.
that. So I could get on the soapbox here. I will stop because we have a lot of questions.
The only thing I'll add to that is we hear quite a bit of people coming in is exactly the opposite side of that is people, or the other side of the coin of that is that people will come in and be like, therapists suck. I've seen therapists, they're ridiculous. And I'm like, yeah, you saw some not, they were maybe it didn't work for you, but please don't
Yeah.
give up. Please, please. Like there's somebody, it's so romantic. There's somebody good out there for you. I promise. You just have to keep looking. But it's true. Okay. All right. Okay. Two more questions and not a lot of time. So let's see. I will shut up and just let you answer them. Okay. As someone who hasn't worked in 7 years and suffers from severe anxiety, PTSD, depression, and panic attacks, what advice would you give in regards to returning to work, especially during a pandemic?
A lot of digging deep into compassion. You have been experiencing a lot, and I think there are probably many reasons why you've been experiencing these things, and to know that what you're going to need is a lot of what I call courage in the truest sense of the word. Courage is not about being fearless. It's actually quite the opposite. The definition of courage is to experience fear and face the thing that is causing you fear. So when you've been experiencing trauma and anxiety and panic attacks and have been experiencing depression, you've been struggling with a lot of stuff. And now returning to work, I really hope that you're able to be very compassionate about how hard it's been, the kind of things that you've been dealing with, and that you are summoning one of the most difficult and amazing things that humans have, and that's courage in now facing your fears. So dig deep for that compassion and take it one step at a time. Don't worry too much about 1 month down the road. Start with day one and look at week one and how can you learn and grow and face this difficult task of starting to get back into the workforce.
Thank you so much. That was great advice, Jada. I hope that helps. And the last question we have is from Astelarin, which complements their first question, if I'm not mistaken. Question is, I have suffered from depression phases and intermittent explosive disorder since I was 11 years old. Since my 20th, I have had PTSD. I have had cognitive therapy, but it helps for a period and then it comes back. Are there other therapies for me?
Yeah, so there are. I feel like I'm gonna recommend DBT again.
Oh no! If only we didn't like. Yeah, no, yeah, DBT. DBT's great.
DBT would be one thing to look at, and if you want a little sneak preview of what that can be like, gosh, do I have the book here? I don't think
I have the other one. I don't have Marsha Linehan's, but I do have
ooh,
the.
I don't think you know what I'm going to be recommending here.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually recommend a graphic memoir.
What?
Ellen Forney wrote Marbles,
Note.
which is it's a graphic memoir about her life with bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she wrote a sequel called Something, which I am blanking on right now.
I will Google it later.
Yeah. Ellen Forney's sequel to Marbles is a graphic memoir self-help book that is heavily influenced by DBT. It's a wonderful read. I would start off with that. So DBT is one thing I would look into. Another thing you can look into is TFCBT, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. It shares a lot in common with DBT. And if you've experienced intermittent explosive disorder, if you've experienced some level of depression and trauma, one of the biggest things that's going to be really important for you is learning how to deal with these intense emotions. Like your nervous system, the way it's become wired now is emotions are very quick to activate. So they're quick to activate, they stay escalated for a long time, and it's hard to bring them down. So with that quick escalation and slow return to baseline, that's where you kind of have to learn a lot of skills that help you to feel safer and help you to feel more in control of how you're feeling. Once you gain that sense of safety again, then it's going to be about learning how to deal with the thoughts that you have around your trauma. And there's a lot of things that can do that. Trauma-focused CBT will help you to form a new narrative. There's cognitive processing therapy that can help you to write these impact statements and form a new story about yourself. There's a lot of ways forward, but I would say trying to lean into a trauma-focused type of treatment, like trauma-focused CBT or maybe DBT. That might be a good thing to try. That's going to feel very different than what you had before.
Awesome. Somebody said, is the book called Rock Steady?
Yes! I love live streaming.
I know, right?
Reason.
It's like having a Wikipedia. We have somebody we call Blifflepedia because they literally woke up with just Google answers. But this was Maywin. Thank you so much, Maywin. I appreciate you.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have. Oh, Matt Padilla says I've got that book. That's awesome. That is all the time we have. So. Awesome. Dr. Ali.
That is wild.
Yeah, I know.
How is that possible? How is that an hour? I feel like it's been like 10 minutes.
I know, because it's so good. It's so good. No, you're so great. Thank you so much for answering all the community's questions and so thoroughly. And you know, even though we took a sidetrack, you came back. We both came back. It's not easy to do. So thank you so much. Yeah, more please. I would love to have Dr. Ali come back, please. That would be awesome.
We can always do a part 2, and I'm trying. I want to do more. I call them office hours on my channel. I did like a couple of live streams. I'm trying to do more of those. So look out for those. But yeah, I really love being here and the connection. And thank you everyone for your awesome questions. I wish we had like all day to talk about it.
I know. Well, we'll let you go. Just you know where to find me. Do you have anything else quick that you want to plug other than I have links to your channel, to your Twitter, to your Instagram? Anything else that you're like, people should know this? I don't know. You got to go out with a bang. No pressure at all.
I really like Sour Patch Kids. I don't know. I don't have anything else. Yeah, you're a fan. It's like my favorite.
Oh my god. Well, I prefer gummy worms, not gonna lie, but Sour Patch Kids are awesome.
How about sour gummy rings? Have you had those? Yeah, they're so good. I will destroy that pack. I can't just have one.
Somebody sent me for my birthday a store size package of gummy worms because I prefer that over like chocolate. But anyway, all right.
Your favorite brand?
Actually, yes. The trolley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And those are like at every gas station, which is amazing.
Perfect for like no money. It's great.
Right. Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you again so much. You know where to find me. I would love to continue just talking to you in general. Again, no pressure. But yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day. And I'll be
Thanks
right
for having
back,
me.
fam.
Bye everyone.